All right, welcome Trade Pros. This is Mark coming at you guys from our headquarters here in Toronto, Ontario, on today's date, Tuesday, October the 15th, 2019. Hope you guys are doing well. To our colleagues here in Canada, hope you guys enjoyed the Thanksgiving long weekend. We are back at it again today, and let's get at it. Weather in Toronto is not looking any better. In fact, the weather for the next 6 months is not looking very favorable, but that comes with the territory, and it's really starting to feel like winter here in Toronto already today and this week. So outside of that, let's take a look at some of the news we had on today's session. Georgia covered some of the overnight drivers. I'm just going to go over the drivers throughout the US session quickly here, and then we'll plop into the charts. Today's not going to be a very big update. It's been a bit of a quieter one, and I'm honestly feeling pretty poopy as well. So let's do this and head on out. So U.S. session, we had China reportedly warning that China reportedly warns U.S. to remove tariffs to hit 50 billion on agricultural imports after um, hold on, this is not making any sense. China reportedly wants U.S. to remove tariffs to hit 50 billion on agricultural imports offer per the phase trade agreement announced on Friday. Then we have a couple of squawks here. IMF updates its world economic outlook, cuts both 2019 and 2020 growth outlook as expected. Another squawk out of Chinese state TV mentioning that China and U.S. have said to have found a way to solve problem at talks. And then we also have IMF chief economist Gopinath mentioning that if global growth were to deteriorate more, internationally coordinated fiscal response is needed. All right, so that's basically all that we had on today's session so far. Very, very quiet. And yeah, that's basically it. As far as the agenda is concerned, 12:45 p.m. Eastern Time, we do have some Fed speak. That's basically all that we have into the remainder of today's session. A little bit of Fed speak. First and foremost, we have FOMC member George speaking at 12:45. This is Federal Reserve Bank of Kansas City president, and this is Esther George, and she is a voting member of the FOMC in 2019. So that becomes important to see what she has to say. She is due to speak about U.S. payment systems at an event hosted by the Federal Reserve Bank of Chicago with audience questions expected. Don't really expect there to be too much volatility on the back of this one since she's more speaking on U.S. payment systems. You do also have FOMC member Bullard who is speaking at 3:25 p.m. Eastern Time. And Bullard is the Federal Reserve Bank of St. Louis president. That's James Bullard, also a voting member in 2019. And Bullard is expected to deliver a speech titled Federal Reserve's the Federal Reserve's Monetary Policy Option at a 2019 Monetary and Financial Policy Conference in Lisbon with audience questions expected. So this one, FOMC member Bullard's speech to me seems like it's going to hold a little bit more weight simply because he's talking about Federal Reserve's monetary policy options, whereas Esther George is speaking on U.S. payment systems. All right, so I don't think Esther George's speech at 12:45 is going to drive much volatility, but I do think that FOMC member Bullard speech at 3:25 p.m. Eastern might provide a little bit more volatility. So that's really what we got for you guys on the agenda for the remainder of today's session. So we've gone ahead and covered the overnight drivers, gone ahead and covered some of the U.S. session drivers. We've taken a look at what to expect going into the latter half of today's session. And let's switch over to the charts now and get this guy going. What's this little comment? Awesome. All right, so let me switch over to my charts. Where's my tool? Here we go. There it is. All right, and before I switch on over, let's just say hello to our colleagues here in the chat. And I can see Williams in here. Hope you're doing well, Willie. And George as well. Hello, guys. So now that we are on the charts, let's take a quick peek at the quote board here. So relatively light volume on both of these markets, crude oil and S&P 500. Crude oil up top, 373,000 contracts on today's session. Daily change percentage relatively flat. If you take a look at the crude oil chart here on the left hand side, you can see this thing's just been a chop suey all day today. We started up near the overnight highs, dipped down to these 10s, we've come back up, broke those highs, come back down, and just really doing a whole bunch of nothing, getting people stuck. I shorted down here, got stopped out on the way here. I got long up here, got stopped out on the way there. Gave this thing two shots. Both of these, no continuation for me. So I'm done on crude oil for this part of the session. Not really looking to do anything. And S&P 500 today, nice big run up. Again, not very much opportunity to catch any pullbacks. You had to be really aggressive. I'm not aggressive, so I didn't catch anything in here. In fact, I did try fading something around these overnight highs and got away with a tick or two of profit before covering that and watching this thing just annihilate anybody that didn't cover their shorts. All right, so realized I was on the wrong side really quick here on the SPOOs. On crude oil, again, off the open, we were getting lower lows, lower highs. Nice little breakdown at VWAP. I was just looking for that rotation to sell off. Got stopped as it just V-bottomed basically. And then same thing happened here. We came down into that level, made a nice double bottom, kind of held that rotations, popped above previous highs, came back down, and I bought the open at the 62s for a hold rotation and go. No rotations, just dumped right through and took my stop with it. So some days it works and you look good. Some days it doesn't work and you feel crappy because you lost the trades. But that's part of the game. That's part of what market. That's part of what trading is. And if you're not willing to accept the risk, then this is not the industry for you. So that's all I got to say on that front. S&P 500 volume again pretty light, 730,000 contracts. I would like to see over a million at this part of the session. We haven't seen that. However, daily change percentage is pretty good. We are up 1.11%. Previous days close. Where is PDC on my charts here? I don't even see previous day close here on my chart, so I'm not too sure where oh, there it is. Right around the 66 3/4 or so, that was a previous day close, and we are above that, and we are above the US cash open, right? So previous day close right down in here, US open right over here, and this is where we're currently trading. So well above both of those targets. In fact, I believe we are trading near R3, no, R2. We're trading around R2 here on the S&P 500. And so this is a level where I can see sellers coming in to defend. You can see we did have a previous top there. We're right back at it right now. It's also R2. Bit of an extended run so far today. That's not to say that we can't continue higher, but the fact that we did kind of consolidate R1 before breaking it, I think we'll have a little bit of consolidation here before we figure out our next step. All right. So as far as S&P 500, based on these pivot charts, we are coming back into a pretty significant level. You can see this was previous tops, and we're coming right back into that. So this does have the potential to make a nasty double top before continuing lower. But it's also at the inflection point where it can just simply break above that level, rotate, and then continue off to fresh highs. So we're kind of at an inflection point right now. This 3,000 remains a big level. I don't really think we're going to get much directional movement for the remainder of today's session. I kind of anticipate this thing closing off with consolidation. All right, so just looking at the S&P 500, like I said, we've had a pretty directional move today. You haven't had very many, like you don't see any single black candles in this whole run up, which means there was no 10 tick reversal off of the highs for anybody to get in, which means you had to be aggressive into to get in on that market. And so what I'm seeing at the moment is we are kind of topping out a little bit. You can see that we did come into those 3002s or so. We found some resistance and we brought it down. A little double bottom here right around these 95s, and we're coming back up to the top of the range. So I'm just honestly seeing us hanging between these ranges for the remainder of today's session, between those 3094s. That's kind of what I'm anticipating into the end of today's session. A little bit more chop. I wouldn't be surprised, honestly, to see us kind of trade in here. make a bit of a dip below this level into US cash close, and then overnight continue on to fresh highs. That's what I'm thinking. The fact that we've had this big of a run without any significant pullbacks, I think we're going to consolidate a bit more. And we need to get some new shorts excited, and we need to get some new short side liquidity. And that will be either getting longs stuck in here for a puke of their shorts, and then getting some shorts excited for, a continuation lower. Get that short side liquidity in, and then look to drive into the offers up top. That's what I'm seeing on S&P 500. Crude oil, honestly, don't even want to look at this chart. This thing's just not really giving us much today. We did come into previous highs, broke above that, right? And really here, if we're going to continue higher, that should have held and we should have continued. It did not. It broke right back through, stopping me out in the process. And now we're just kind of consolidating here. Today's day has been a lot of this, just a move, consolidation, move, consolidation, move, consolidation. And so where does it go from here? I don't know. It could go down here. If it does that, the market's basically giving you a nice little FU pattern, and maybe she'll keep coming on down back below these 53.10s. Certainly giving me that FU pattern since I've been getting stopped out on the short side and on the long side. So market's definitely giving me an FU today. And that's okay. I'm taking that FU and I'm walking away with it. And I'll be back here tomorrow to hit this thing over the head. So as it stands, I am seeing resistance here around these 60s. If we maintain that level as resistance, you'll likely make a press down into these 53.10s. That's kind of the range that I'm holding it, but I won't be trading crude anymore today. This thing's kind of died out for me, and I'm not really seeing much opportunity here other than the opportunity to get absolute ginsued in the middle, which we don't want to stick around and do. All right, so that's what I got for you guys with S&P 500. Like I said, expecting a bit of a range, not really expecting this to be broken out. In fact, I'm kind of anticipating a bit of a fade from up here down into the lower end of the range. Can get a couple of points on that front. Other than that, you could look to try to get long near the range lows. However, given that this was such an extended move, I think we'll likely make a bit of a deeper press before we continue up. That being said, it's your capital at the end of the day. You guys take the trades that fit your risk criteria. All right, so that's what I got for you guys on today's session. Let me see what we've got here. Yeah, so Will, happy to see you're back from vacation. I know you've been kicking some ass. Jocelyn, hello. George and Will, really appreciate you supporting me in here. Yeah, if you guys can smash that like button if you guys are enjoying this, would really help us out. Really appreciate any of that stuff. So that's basically all that we got for today's session, guys. Seeing a little bit more consolidation in the SPOOs around this level between 3,000 and the 2994s. And similarly with crude, just seeing a little bit of consolidation between 5360, that's the upside range, and 5310s are the downside range. I won't be touching it. Wouldn't be touching it with a 10-foot pole, even if I did have that option. And that's kind of how I feel about it at the moment. All right, so that's what we got. Let me throw the Trade Pro Performance Index, drag this sucker into screen, and let's get that showing you guys. So we actually did as a team very well, despite my lack of performance. Our team did very well, which I'm very proud of. So on the 15th, we had 70, I think this was almost a record high. So we had 70.83% of the team was up on today's session. This was when we signed off at around 11:15 or so. So 70% of the room was up, 17% was flat, and 12.5% were down. Myself included, I was part of the down team today. That being said, 87.5% of the room was positive on today's session. So I think that is actually a record for us since we've started recording these data points back in September of 2018. So been just over a year, and on the 1 year anniversary, we we managed to smash some record numbers, 87.5% live positive on today's session. So we are kind of bouncing back to what we saw at the beginning of October, really good numbers in the 80%. For those of you that might be newer to these updates, this does not mean that the team got 87% returns on their capital. It simply means that out of 100 traders, let's say 87 or so, 87 and a half traders or so finished up on today's session. All right, so don't want to get these numbers misconstrued and give you guys false insights. What this is showing you is basically how the team is doing, and again, we don't necessarily vote on these, um, so I'm not technically in these 12.5%. But our community does vote on this. So what we want to show you guys is how our team is doing, and this is how our team is doing. We don't vote on these, our team does, and our team is absolutely smashing it. We did have a bit of a challenging day yesterday. Looks like that was yesterday. We weren't in the office, but Georgie was, and a nice bounce back. And that's very typical of what you see from trade pros. Is if we do have a day that's not as emphatic, the next day tends to bounce back quite nicely. So you can see that in the previous performance, and you can see that in yesterday's numbers as well. So that's what I got for you guys on today's session. Excuse me. If you guys enjoy that one, please do make sure to smash that like button. Sorry guys, not feeling really good here, and I'll likely be heading home very shortly to work from the comfort of home. So if you guys will be trading into the latter half of today's session, you guys know the 3 rules: patience, diligence, and discipline. Until tomorrow, guys, good luck and good trading. Take care. Ciao.